Okay, in this last video, I'm going to share with you one of the best transitions of all of them, and that is the mix and match transition. This is where you actually start to take all of these different transitions and you start to use them together in different ways. Now, this is a little bit different than the layered cake transition, where the layered cake transition, you're progressively adding different elements of your track back in to build it up before the drop or before the hook. But in this case, you can actually start to use a stutter transition mixed with a pitch transition. So you could take something that you're stuttering and pitch it, kind of like what I mentioned during the stutter transition, where I showed you how you could stutter the snare drum and then you could also pitch it at the same time. You can add that and then also have a reversed impact transition on top of that. So there's any number of combinations you can do with these transitions to start to make your track even more interesting. And I'll show you an example of that now. All right, what you're looking at now is a track that I remixed for an artist by the name of Lauren Grace, and the track is called Us. Now, with this mix and match technique, you can make use of a lot of these transitions in your track in different ways. And I'll show you just a couple ways that I made use of those transitions in this particular track. And I'm going to go to the breakdown of this section. And I'm going to go to the breakdown section because I use quite a bit inside of this breakdown just to get into and out of the breakdown section. So leading into this breakdown, I have these shifter sounds, and I took a couple of crash cymbals and just reversed them. And then I also have this white noise kind of shift as well. Now, the thing about using these right here in this particular way that I use them was that earlier on in the track, I was using these in a way to lead into the chorus section. But in this case, it makes you feel like things are building up when actually they start to break down. So I'm using this transitional element to kind of trick the listener into thinking that it's going to be the big chorus section again here, but then I drop it out on you. So this is what it sounds like going into the breakdown and through the build section here, back into the hook again. And so I'll play that for you and then I'll break it down and show you exactly what I did there.
You forgot about us, but you forgot about me. You forgot about everything that we were gonna be.
All right, so there's a lot of elements going on there, especially in this build section leading back into the hook. So throughout the breakdown, I'm making use of the layered cake transition. And so I start with a couple of synth sounds here and her vocals, and then I layer in this vocal chop where I chopped up her vocals here, and then I kind of double timed it in the buildup. So it starts with this half time or this slower kind of chop, and then it goes into a quicker one. And the whole time, while it's going on, I'm adding in new layers of synths here. So I have these two synths going on, and then I add in a third sound with this harp synth. And then later on, I add in this other synth sound on top of that once the build comes in. So those are the different layers that I'm adding in through the breakdown. But the other thing that I'm doing in this build section is I have these drums that are filtered out up in this section here. And while they're being filtered out, I start to add in a kick build. So what you can see here is that these drums are filtered and they're starting to open up, and that the filter is starting to open up in this build section. So I'm using a filter transition, and then on the kick, I have it building up here. So I'm using a bit of a stutter transition where I'm stuttering these kicks and I'm playing them faster as the time moves on. And then the last element that I have in here is these shifter sounds where I'm using a sample of her vocals and I'm pitch shifting it. So I'm using a pitch transition on top of the stuttered and filter transitions, and then also on top of the layer cake transition where I've been building through this entire breakdown. So the shifter sounds right here at the end sounds like this. So you can hear there's a pitch shifting element in there. And so that's a transition into, it's kind of lifting up and leading you into the hook. And then with the drums, I have this filter sweep kind of opening up with the kick drums kind of progressively getting faster as the pitch gets higher. So you can hear that the filter opens up all the way by the time it gets to the hook. So then these drums are back in full effect. And this pitch has reached its climax right at that point where the hook drops in. So that's making use of a lot of different elements there. So I'll play that again for you one more time just so you can listen to that again after knowing what all is going on with all of this.
In jail. But what we had is all that I want. But you forgot about us. But you forgot about we. You forgot about everything that we were gonna be.
So that is the mix and match transitions where you can make use of a lot of these different transitions all in one portion of your song. Just taking a quick look back at this third law of emotion bridge section, there's a few different transition elements that I put to use here. One would be these drum fills where you have these toms coming in at. And then I have this layered cake transition that I showed you earlier where I'm kind of building it back up through the bridge. And then I make use of both the stop and the drop transitions right at the very end of the bridge. And that's where all of the sounds drop out. But then I also put a stop effect on these synth sounds down here. So the stop sound was this. And everything else drops out for a split second, and then the chorus comes back in. So I'll play that for you again just so you can hear what that section sounds like. And so that's making use of a lot of the different transitional elements just to make that one section of the track a lot more interesting. And just to do a quick recap of the 13 simple transitions that I've shown you over the course of these videos, the first transition that we had was the solo transition, and then I showed you how to do the drop transition. Then we had the stop transition. There was the drum fill transition, the filter transition, the no transition transition. There was the impact transition, the stutter transition, the pitch transition, the turnaround transition, the reverse transition, the layered cake transition, and then finally the mix and match transition. And that's where you can take any number of those and start to use them together in combinations, in different combinations to make your tracks even more interesting. So once you've had a chance to make use of these transitions in your tracks, be sure to drop me a line and let me know which transitions you made use of and how it worked out for you with your tracks. I'd love to hear what you've got going on and check out what you've been doing with these transitions.